What if everything falling apart in your life was not the end, but the beginning of your soul's return? We are taught to fear breakdowns, to fix them, escape them. But what if the breakdown was sacred? What if what you're experiencing right now isn't a failure, but a hidden invitation? Carl Jung once said, people do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But those brave enough to face it awaken, and it changes everything. The spiritual awakening is not glamorous. It doesn't start with light. It starts with fire, with loss, with confusion, with deep, unshakable loneliness. Your relationships may crumble. Your job may feel pointless. Your old dreams may seem meaningless. And you begin to ask, what is happening to me? This is a moment of sacred disorientation, where the ego starts to collapse and the authentic self begins to stir. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the deep journey of becoming your whole self, where the unconscious becomes conscious and the soul begins to lead. But here's the truth most won't tell you. Awakening can feel like death before it feels like freedom. And that's why this video exists. I've been through it. And if you're watching this, maybe you are too. Today, I'll guide you through 5 real stages of awakening based on Carl Jung's psychological map, so you can not only survive your awakening, but rise from it with clarity, power, and soul. And if at any point something I say resonates deeply, pause and comment. Let others know, yes, I feel this too. Because the awakening is personal, but never meant to be lonely. Let's begin. The first stage is pure chaos, and yet it's divine. Suddenly, what used to bring you joy doesn't move you anymore. People around you feel like strangers. Your job feels like a lie. Your goals don't make sense. You might even feel like you're losing your mind. But what's actually happening is this. The false self is collapsing. The mask you wore for years, built from expectations, trauma, fear, is no longer sustainable. Carl Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And this is that pain. This stage is frightening because you're being stripped bare. It feels like you're dying. But what's dying is the illusion, not you. You may feel numb or overwhelmed. You might cry without knowing why. Sleep patterns change. You're pulled to solitude, introspection, or even intense anxiety. These are signs that your psyche is trying to realign itself. Many people try to fix this. They go back to old patterns, distractions, or medication. But if you can trust the breakdown, if you can sit in the fire without running, you will start to hear something deeper, a whisper from the soul. You're not broken. You're breaking open. This stage is survival through surrender. Let go of the need to control or explain. Let go of timelines. Let the ego unravel. And if this is where you are right now, I want you to type one word in the comments, rebirth, because that's what this is, the first flame of your rebirth. Once the breakdown begins, what rises next is not light, but shadow. All the hidden, denied, repressed parts of your being begin to surface. Rage, shame, fear, jealousy, guilt. Suddenly, you're feeling things you thought you had buried. You say things that shock even yourself. You see patterns of behavior that contradict your idea of who you are. This is not regression. This is revelation. Carl Jung taught that each of us carries a shadow, the unconscious aspect of the personality that the ego refuses to acknowledge. And during awakening, the barrier between ego and unconscious becomes thin. The shadow leaks out. He wrote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's what this stage is about. Taking back authorship of your life by facing what you have unconsciously projected onto others for years. You might feel ashamed of your thoughts, terrified by your feelings, tempted to suppress it all. But the shadow isn't here to destroy you. It's here to complete you. In fact, the most powerful parts of your soul often hide within your darkness. Your anger holds your boundaries. Your jealousy reveals your unfulfilled dreams. Your fear contains a map to your growth. This stage is emotionally intense. You might isolate, cry often, have vivid dreams, even experience ego backlash, where you feel like running back to your old life just to escape the pressure. But here's the truth. Shadow work is not about healing to be better. It's about embracing to be whole. So how do you survive this? Gently, with compassion. Keep a journal. Sit with your feelings. But don't identify with them. Let them speak. Let them show you what they've been trying to say all along. And find safe spaces, therapists, coaches, soul friends, where you can process these revelations without judgment. You don't have to like your shadow. You just have to listen to it. If you've been through this or you're in it now, comment the word integration below, because that's what this is. Not destruction, but integration. Your soul is gathering every lost part of you and calling it home. There's a strange silence that follows a shadow. People begin to drift away. Conversations feel empty. Old routines feel foreign. You look around and the life you used to love feels like it no longer fits. This is not coincidence. This is the soul's purification. Carl Jung understood that in the process of individuation, the psyche naturally withdraws from anything that no longer reflects the true self. He wrote, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." And part of that inferno is losing the people and places that once anchored your ego. Suddenly, your best friend doesn't get you. Your partner feels distant. You try to explain your awakening, but no one understands. They tell you to snap out of it or go back to the old you, but you can't. That version of you is gone. This isolation can feel like abandonment, like exile, but in truth, it's protection. The soul is creating space, sacred space, for you to rebuild from the inside out. This is your cocoon phase, and it's essential. Butterflies don't emerge surrounded by noise. They dissolve in darkness. Alone, you are not being punished. You are being prepared. This is the moment to stop chasing validation, to stop explaining yourself. You are not crazy. You are becoming. Jung also said, "Loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important." And that's exactly what happens in this phase. Your inner world becomes too deep, too symbolic, too real to be translated into casual small talk. So what do? You go inward deliberately. You create rituals. You meditate, walk in nature, write letters to your soul. You let solitude teach you how to self-source your worth. And slowly, you begin to enjoy your own presence. You realize this silence is not empty. It's full of truth, healing, insight. If you're in this phase now, type COCOON in the comments. Let the world know you're not lost. You're incubating. Remember, the people who leave aren't rejecting you. They're releasing the version of you that no longer exists. Let them go with love, so that the real you can rise. As the noise of the outside world fades, something unexpected begins to happen. You notice patterns, recurring numbers, symbols in dreams, strange coincidences, moments that feel like the universe is whispering to you. This is not your imagination. This is the awakening of your inner guide. Carl Jung coined the term synchronicity to describe meaningful coincidences, events that seem connected by meaning, not logic. He believed they were messages from the unconscious, signposts on the path of individuation. He wrote, "Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. When you're deep in the awakening process, your rational mind no longer leads. Your intuition begins to speak louder. You might feel drawn to certain books, places, or people without knowing why. You begin to trust your inner pull more than others' opinions. This is the soul reclaiming its voice. But here's the challenge. Your ego will doubt it. It will say, 'You're making this up.' It will beg for logic, for proof. But awakening is not about proof. It's about presence. And when you slow down enough to truly notice, you'll see it. Your inner compass is already pointing the way. Dreams, in particular, become potent in this stage. Jung called them the royal road to the unconscious. They bypass the rational mind and deliver pure soul wisdom, but only if you're willing to listen. So how do you survive this stage? Start paying attention. Keep a dream journal by your bed. Notice repeated words, animals, symbols, or colors in your day-to-day life. Ask questions before you sleep and see what your dreams answer. Don't rush to interpret everything. Instead, let the symbols simmer in your awareness. Trust is a key. You are building a relationship with your soul, and just like any relationship, It takes time, respect, and listening. And here's the most beautiful part. The more you trust your inner guide, the louder it speaks. The more you follow the signs, the more signs appear. What was once chaos becomes choreography, a sacred dance. If you experience this, comment the word signs below. Let others know the invisible world is real. Because once you learn to follow your symbols, you're never truly lost again. This is a stage most people never reach, because it's not about escaping the world, but returning to it as someone new. After the fire, the silence, the symbols, and the death of ego, something remarkable begins to emerge. Wholeness. And with it, a deep desire to live, not as someone pretending, but as someone aligned. Carl Jung called the stage integration, the unification of the conscious and unconscious, of the ego and the self. It's when your outer life begins to reflect your inner truth. It's when you no longer act to impress or conform, but to express your essence. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." In this phase, you begin to reconnect with life, not out of obligation, but from authenticity. You might rebuild your relationships, but now with boundaries. You might find new paths, careers, or ways of serving, but rooted in soul, not survival. And you finally understand you weren't meant to ascend out of your human experience. You were meant to embody your divinity within it. You begin to accept that being spiritual doesn't mean being perfect. It means being real, being awake, being humble, being whole. But even this stage has its challenges. The world you return to hasn't changed. You have, and it can feel lonely being awake in a world still asleep. That's why it's essential to create and share. Share your journey. Write, paint, speak, mentor, serve. Turn your wounds into wisdom, your pain into path, your shadow into light for others. This is what Jung meant by the return of the hero. You don't disappear into enlightenment. You come back with medicine. You become a lighthouse for those still lost in the storm. And remember, integration is not a one-time event. It's a daily practice, a commitment to staying true to your inner compass, no matter how loud the world gets. If you've made it to this point, or you aspire to, comment return below, because your journey isn't over. It's just beginning, and the world needs your wholeness more than ever. Now that you've seen the full path, from the fire collapse to the quiet of inner guidance, you may realize something powerful. You were never broken. You were being reassembled. The pain, the isolation, the doubt, the symbols, the silence, they were not signs of your destruction. They were initiations. Carl Jung understood that awakening is not about becoming someone new. It's about removing everything that was never really you. It's a return, not to your ego, but to your soul, to the self that has always been buried beneath layers of conditioning, trauma, and fear. And that's why you had to go through all of this, to remember who you are, to take your power back, to walk the world, not blindly, but consciously. You didn't lose your mind. You just lost your mask. And now, you're equipped with something rare, spiritual clarity in a confused world. The truth is, the world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more people who have awakened from the dream and dared to live awake. If any part of this journey spoke to your soul, if you saw your story in these words, if you've been walking this path in silence, know this, you are not alone. There are thousands awakening just like you, quietly, bravely, in the dark, and together, we are remembering the truth, that this world is not just matter, it is spirit, and you are proof of that. Now I invite you to share your experience in the comments. What part of the awakening are you in? What did you need to hear today? Type your word, rebirth, integration, cocoon, signs, or return, and let's form a map together. Also, subscribe if this spoke to your soul. This channel exists to guide, illuminate, and walk beside you as you become who you truly are. Because every time one soul awakens, the entire world heals a little more.